Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So my guest is Mark Morowitz, and Mark is one of the friendliest, nicest people that we have that we work with at Boomer Times. And it's interesting when you look back at people, so much happens in everybody's life. And we all have to make choices, though. And you made some very good choices in your life. I guess when you were growing up, you became astute in financing, which was very important. But you don't have a psychology degree, do you? You should.
I've just from what I've gathered on the job.
Right. So, yeah, you should, because I think that you need to have, I think everyone should have a psychology degree, because that's life, isn't it?
I got a D in psychology, beginning psychology in college. I said, that's not for me.
I got a D in geometry.
There you go. Everybody has their specialty.
That's right. Oh, my goodness. I couldn't figure that out.
However, from working with a lot of people over the past 43 years, I have come to learn a lot about people. And what I'm focusing on now, I actually learned this in the past month or two from my son who was living with me. I'm learning to listen to people, not just hear them, but listen to them. So when I talk to somebody now, I give them time to pause instead of jumping in with my ideas, which is probably something that most people need to work on. They probably don't realize it. Nobody wants to hear that they're not a good listener. But if you do listen, if you do hear somebody say that, take some time and listen to it.
It's funny you should mention that. Maybe it's because of my interviewing skills and what I've been taught. I do listen, and I like to listen, and I do find out about people. But so many people I talk to, I could just not be there. They just talk, and they talk, and they talk, and they... I once said to a friend of mine, you don't even ever ask me about what I'm doing. Oh, I'm sorry. And she did. And then she started talking again, and then she just completely forgot it. And you think it's nervousness? What is it why somebody can't really listen and understand and be quiet?
As you can see, I just gave you a pause. I think it's interesting. I was at a seminar a few years ago, about 700 CPAs in the room, and there was a guy, there was a motivational speaker, I forget his name, but he started out as a clown in he worked for a shopping center, and he did Saturday afternoon things, and he became a motivational speaker. He had a very tough childhood, and basically he said, when somebody says to you, how are you? Most people just say, I'm okay, and people don't. There's nothing to care about when you say you're okay. So he said, when I meet somebody, they say, how are you? I say, I'm living the dream. And you'd be surprised, how many, what it does. So I started to try it. And when people ask me now how I'm doing, I say, I'm living the dream. And I remember walking through a supermarket a number of years ago, and the butcher came walking out, and he said to me, hi, how you doing? I said, I'm living the dream. He said, so am I. So he understood that. And people start to talk, and they ask questions, and most people don't really care what you have to say because they don't have the time. They're wrapped up in their own world, and but it's amazing what you find out about people if you really do care about what they have to say.
Well, Mark, as a gerontologist, I have adored the older population, and I've listened a lot for a long time, and it's been joyful for me because I've learned so much from them. And I'll give you an example. I hope you're coming to our Boomer Expo on the 22nd.
I will not be able
Oh, you
to
won't
make
be
it.
here?
No, I can't.
Oh, too bad.
I'll be away out of town.
I'm sorry. Well, we have a gentleman. It's the sailor who kissed the woman, and it was on the cover of Life magazine.
Right.
And he's coming. He's 93 years old, and he doesn't stop talking. He is so good, and he brings pictures, he says, and he's going to sign them. 200 pictures,
wow.
And people love them. And you have to really listen to him. Even though he talks a lot, he has a lot to say. And it's fun. I can just be on, someone will say to me, are you still there? Yes, I'm listening. So he's one of those kind of people who is very interesting, has lots to say, and does need people to listen to him.
Yeah, he's got a message. Not everybody has that message. Some people don't want you to know their message. Some people are very private. My parents were very private. My father served in World War II, never talked about it. Would love to have heard it. We'd ask, what happened. He would never, something bad must have happened. He never talked about it, never talked about his childhood. And he passed away at a very young age. And I never really, there were times when I needed to talk to my father about raising kids and, what to expect, and he wasn't there. So, I urge everybody, and I think this might be the subject of my next essay in the magazine next month. Just random thoughts off my head. Doesn't necessarily have to do with financial items, but, talk to your kids, no matter how old they are. Even if they're young, if they're old like me, just talk to them. We want to know what you have to say, and don't worry about being judged or feelings. And I think a lot of people in my father's generation were afraid to express their feelings. Men couldn't cry. That was a sign of weakness, and I missed that, and with my parents. So I'm going to urge anybody out there listening, if you have children, even if they're grown adults like myself, talk to them, tell them everything, because eventually you won't be there to tell them anymore, and they want to know.
And Mark Morowitz is the professor here. He's talking about, no, it's really true. He says a lot of very good things. It's Mark Morowitz. It's Morowitz, and you can see his great articles in Boomer Times every month. But when you were talking about that, Mark, I was thinking, moving it a little bit ahead, families don't talk about their financial information. And that's serious because they're afraid. They don't want their kids to know something. And so it's one thing to talk to them about certain things, but don't you find that they don't really talk to their family members about what they have and what they don't have?
Very often, and there are a number of reasons for that. I think, number one, they weren't taught that when they were growing up, so people tend to do the same things that they learned and experienced. And I think that we always look at our kids as kids, and they may not be ready to know what we have, what our plans are. Sometimes people can't handle knowing what their parents have financially and it's a difficult conversation to have. There are a lot of people that put their kids' names on, up to older people, put their grown-up kids' names on their bank accounts and just, for sake of ease when they should pass away. And but the kids don't know what's there. So it's a shock. In fact, I think I was talking about this in my last article, about naming an executor and
it's a great article about it.
In fact, I have to go get a will drafted myself. So it's important to tell the kids, to tell your heirs, to tell, just share things, because, if you have financial problems, and nobody's immune from financial problems, the more you have, the harder it is, when you do have a problem, don't keep it from anybody. People want to help, especially family. So sit down with your family and tell them, you have, make a list of what assets you have. In fact, use your accountant to help you make that list, so people know what to look for, and they don't struggle putting your estate together, or whatever they can do to help you.
Well, I have an elder law attorney who's just been fabulous, and he has all this books. He has a book where you put everything in it, with your insurance policy, where it goes. It's brilliant, and so, and I know that's important because there are people now who, when someone passes away, they don't know what to do because they go home, they go to their home, the person who has just passed away, everything is in disarray. In fact, I'll tell you a story that my husband and I were helping his mother. She didn't have much money, and we bought her a condo, did a lot of things that good kids should do. And when she passed away, we thought she had nothing. But what she did is she took a lot of that stuff, that money, and put it somewhere in her safety deposit box. And the way we found some of this is we're going through her closets, and here's a receipt for this amount and all. So we knew nothing, and we wound up, it's quite a bit of, it wasn't even $100,000, but for a woman that didn't have any money, she always said she wanted to leave her son an inheritance.
Right.
I guess you've heard that before.
All the time. All the time. Today, when those books are great, but the problem is that sometimes you change things, you give up your policies, and people start looking for crazy things. What I find is you got to give give a couple of months, 2-3 months of bank activity. You might find dividends being automatically deposited in the bank, so you'll know to look for some stock. The problem today is not everybody, but a lot of people don't get mail anymore, so everything is online. So you have to make sure you know passwords and things like that. And, this way, you might never know that there's a bank account. 7 years after the fact, you check the newspapers for abandoned property listings. And, because if somebody's account goes unclaimed, the money doesn't disappear. It gets sent to the state, and the state holds it as abandoned property, and they publish names usually once a year. And if you happen to see somebody's name that you just contact them, and there may be a bank account that's been sitting there for 7 years. You never know.
I don't think people know about that. I think you ought to put that in one of your columns because
that's one of those random thoughts.
Yeah, that is absolutely great. And so I can see what you're saying now. Something's going to sit, and if there were no mail, and it was all online, how are they going to know? They may not. So there is a way to get that money rightfully.
That's correct.
Oh my goodness! And is it a website you go to?
Yeah, I just Google abandoned property in whatever state you're in.
And that doesn't mean necessarily real estate. That means
right. No, a property meaning any kind of personal property or real property for that matter. Although you wouldn't know about real property because they don't know that it's abandoned. Somebody wouldn't know unless the property taxes haven't been paid on it. In which case, somebody's going to get a notice someplace. Okay, my guess is that most people know about if their parents own real estate somewhere or somebody owns real estate if they're in charge. As an executor, what I always do is I always inventory everybody's property before they die. Tell me what you got. Okay, go through their tax returns, or if I prepare their tax returns, I know what they have. Every year, if last year they had an account at Wells Fargo, and this year they don't bring me a 1099 form from Wells Fargo, I say, what happened to your account at Wells Fargo? Oh, I transferred it to Morgan Stanley or something like that. Okay, so there's always a way to follow up. The best thing somebody can do if they become the executor or their parents die or whatever, call their accountant, ask them, what do they have? We're the first source.
All right. Well, I just want to stress that people should actually be having someone that they can depend on, something like you. And, you do more than just a CPA. I don't think you're on here as a CPA. I think you're here because you really would like to get to help people in other ways. And why don't you tell people some of the ways, and then I'm going to give your phone number, too, because I want to do that. Maybe I should do that right now. It's 609-338-3603. And you can call Mark Morowitz anytime. That's his cell number.
That's correct.
And so remember, this is Pencil Talk Radio. I'll do that one more time. Write it down. It's 609-338-3603. And Mark is a CPA, but I actually think of him in a different way. I think of him as the son that you want to have, and the son that doesn't pay attention to you anymore, but he's with brains at least.
Surrogate
right?
son, that's correct.
Surrogate son.
In fact, I got a phone call last week from somebody who heard the show.
Okay.
And
they wanted you
they
as a
needed a
surrogate
son, and they had no children, and they had a substantial estate. And they wanted to have somebody that they could trust, that could help them, that could listen to what they wanted to do and help them put together a plan to accomplish everything, before they die. And they were, not that they're ill or anything like that, but I think what happens is when people get older, and I'm probably not there yet, although maybe I am, people like to have company. People like to have somebody to talk to, somebody that understands their language. Perhaps their spouse, was never involved in the financial part of it, or vice versa. They need to have somebody to talk to, so they call the surrogate son, and there I am.
Well, that's wonderful. But now I just go a little bit further. So, are you able to know of some good charities and suggest that?
That's one of the things that people that have a lot of money do, that don't have any kids or any heirs. They want to leave their money. Okay, so there's a number of things that can be done, and a number of suggestions that I make to people. And it's a plan. Some people are anonymous. Some people like to get notoriety, and that's fine, and rightfully so. And I'll sit down with somebody and say, this is what I came up with. Okay, let's figure out what you need to live on. How much do you want to give away? How many different charities do you want to give it away to? And but there are ways to do that most people don't know about, and that's kind of where I don't want to give it away over the.
No, I understand,
the
but
radio.
though there is a certain way that you can help someone. That's very
Correct.
important. How does someone not have? Does someone? And we're not saying names, but how does someone who has a nice amount of money to leave, and they don't have anybody around them, how does that happen?
You know what? They either maybe they couldn't have kids, or they didn't want to have kids, or maybe the kids passed away and there were no heirs of their kids. It's various reasons, and
Is this common?
It's not common, but
Right.
you know what? And a lot of times there are people that are driven in the business world that don't have time for kids. I bring up Tony Randall. Remember Tony Randall, the actor, had his kids. He was 75, and everybody made a joke about it. But your kids may be young when you die, because what's your life expectancy is 83, 84. And he said, you know what? I've accomplished everything that I ever had to accomplish professionally. I have all my time now will be put into my kids. And apparently when he passed away, those kids were so well adjusted. He gave them 25 years worth of parenthood in the 10, 11 years that they had him. So there's a lot of people like that. And sometimes people are selfish. Sometimes people don't want to have kids around. Who knows? There's a lot of reasons. I don't get into that. That's a pride. If somebody wants to tell me, that's great. But
But not okay. But there are so many organizations that you can
Tons.
be a part of, and they would love to know that you're going to donate money to them, and they can provide lots of companionship.
Yeah, but you got to be careful, because a lot of these places are really only interested in your money, and you want to look for a place that's going to do something good with your money, not just spend it on administrative expenses, okay, and salaries, and et cetera, et cetera. So you got to be careful. You got to think about where would you like to spread your money around, and there's some really good places. But you know what? All of that stuff is public knowledge. When charities have to file annual tax returns, and that's all public. So you can just go online and take a look at it. And if you've probably seen things like a certain percentage of their receipts go for operating costs. Stay away from the ones that only pay out 10%, 15% of their receipts in charity. Okay, that's more like a business.
Right.
The Red Cross ran into a problem like that a few years ago,
Right.
and so just you got to choose wisely.
Well, good. Well, I think that was a wonderful thing that man found you, and we're happy about that. And so we do have wonderful listeners. I mean, I'm always getting letters from people, and unfortunately, I don't have enough time to go sit and visit with them, which they would like me to do. But
Right.
we do the best we can with what we have, right?
That's correct.
So now that it's I guess we're looking into tax time. It's just January,
Already
right? But-
started.
Is it?
It's already started. Yes.
So what do you advise people to be doing now? They're listening to you. What should they do?
So by the end of January, you should receive your tax forms, 1099 forms. This is very important, okay? Because a lot of people, they get older and they get a touch of dementia, and they forget what they do with their mail. Any envelope that has written on it important tax information enclosed, put to the side, put in a shoebox, put somewhere that you don't throw it away. That happens. And then it becomes a little bit more difficult for somebody to prepare your tax return or whatever. But by January 31st, you should have virtually everything you need except for brokerage statements if you have money in a brokerage account. They're supposed to come out by February 15th. Okay? The problem with that is that they always make 3 amendments to it because they don't have the final numbers. It's gotten very complicated. By the way, January 28th is the day that tax season will start. You can file tax returns. Okay, they're not ready to file yet.
I see. So that was a good suggestion. I think somebody should get a shoebox or something or a special drawer. Just throw it into the drawer, right? And
that's what I recommend. I had an elderly guy a number of years ago. And I would go to his house every year, and we'd sit at the counter in the kitchen, and he'd hand me his 1099s. And he called me one day, and he said, I need you to come over to do taxes. So I went over there, and we sat there for 10 minutes looking at each other. And I said, Tony, where's your forms? He says, what forms? And I said, the tax forms. He says, I didn't get any tax forms. So I said to him, you always get tax forms. Remember, we've been doing this for years. And I said, are you sure? He said, yeah. I said, what do you do with your mail? And he said, I open it up, and if there's money in there, I take the money out. If there's not, I throw it away.
You're so funny.
And he ended up throwing away all these tax forms. And then he fell, and he was in a nursing home. I had to sit with him in the nursing home making because of privacy laws. I had to sit with him and make phone calls and get all these things. So, that's where I learn all my psychology. I understand, what happens to people. So that, to anybody out there that may feel like they may not be capable, just do that. Take your stuff and just throw it in the box. We'll sift through it and, get what we need. So.
Right, or put it in your refrigerator, in a drawer, one of your drawers, just someplace where you know.
And write down where you put it because you may forget where you put it.
Oh, that's really true. Yes, that's happened to me also. Too many papers. Yeah, that's a big problem with. It's funny when we first found computers. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. All the paperwork's going to go. Now it's double. We print out on our computer and we still get things online. It's. Right. I don't know how you manage all that.
Well, on my phone, I have little app there for notes. So I have all of my passwords and all of my usernames in there. And thank God, if I ever lose my phone, I'm in trouble.
Right.
So
well, let me help you with that too, because I have an extra card, a 3x5 card that I have everything, all the people's phone numbers and everything. I didn't do my passwords, but the phone numbers at least on these 3x5 cards, index cards, because if I lose my phone, I don't remember anybody's.
I used to do that.
Yeah.
But if I update something in my phone, I sometimes forget to update it. I have part of it on my computer, but I forget to update it. So I probably just need somebody to go through my phone and do it for me. Yeah.
That's right. You need somebody, but not a CPA.
Yeah.
So, thinking something you said, which is very interesting to me. Here, this is your profession, and you haven't made a will. I want to talk about that.
I did have a will, but I need
you haven't
to update
updated it, right? But there are still people out there not only don't have a will, they don't have a trust. That is an amazing thing to me, that that it isn't not you, because now you just have to update it. But why would somebody just not make a will or make a trust if they know they're going to pass away? I mean, that's kind of the first thing you do. When I first married my second husband, I mean, he did everything. He did the insurance policies. He did the wills. That was the most important thing for him.
I'll give you one reason. I can't speak for everybody, but this is a very valid point, is people make a will, they think they're going to die. They think it's a kinahara.
Oh,
you're
kidding.
They think it's bad luck. Yeah, believe it or not, people think that.
Oh my goodness! I never heard that before.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, so people don't. Oh, so people know they're going to die. They just don't know when they're going to die, and they don't want this to be like the forerunner of
correct.
Like
they don't want to jinx themselves.
Well, I always tell everybody, I'm going to give you $1 million check when you die, and I'm just going to take the check and put it in
Right, exactly. You can take it with you.
Right, so you can take it with you.
Correct. It's a beautiful
No.
thing.
Yeah. Nobody really understands that. But, just getting back to what you were saying with the taxes. So I have been into a lot of elders' homes, and their kitchen tables, and I know you know this, they're just loaded with papers, newspapers and things. And so we need to help people. Now, I guess you may not be able to. It's maybe just the way it is. They get it, and then they just put it, I'll read it later, or I'll take care of it. And
yeah, and
it's a problem.
Some people are hoarders, which is a psychiatric issue and an emotional issue. That's out of my purview. If I see that, I can recommend somebody to come in and help. But a lot of people are afraid to divest themselves of paper, just in case.
I would love to divest myself of paper, and I'm always nervous because I need this for that, and I need this for that. I'd like to have no paperwork around, but, I'm so afraid if I put it on the computer, then if my computer crashes, then I won't have it.
Well, if you
have to
back
have-
up
I
your
know.
computer,
Yeah,
then,
you put it in.
I put everything on my computer. I scan everything now. If everybody had a scanner, my life would be so much easier.
I have a scanner too. Mark, it's wonderful. Let me give your phone number out one more time. I think it's really important. It's 609-338-3603, and it's Mark Morowitz, Morowitz. And if you can't find your phone for him, call us at Boomer Times, and we'll be glad to help you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.